When I used to sell enterprise software, I remember me and the fellow sales reps. I was a VP of sales at a company. We had over 100 reps in just the sales department alone. And we would talk about this product, we would FUD products, and then one day I was just like deep down inside thinking to myself, like, I think all the products are the same. I just think it's who implements it? How do you implement it? Right. Because tooling is just tooling. Right. And I started thinking about how that was evolving because it really felt like, there's a kind of best of breed products kind of bubbling to the top. And so for a CIO, what is the major decision factor now? Is it the product now, or is it more about the people, like the people in place, like who is going to do this? Because I feel like tooling has gotten to a really good place. Obviously, some companies are doing more with it than others. So it feels like it's a people problem, but I'm curious, what are some of the factors you see separating from companies embracing this change and successfully implementing solutions to better their experiences, to better their forecasting, business ops, whatever the case may be? And what's happening to those that are struggling? Like what is the problem for them?
I'm going to say this first, and then I'm going to come back to it. I mean, your technology choices really do matter. They are really important in any single category. You can go look at the landscape quadrants. You'll see a million logos out there in any single category. There's a reason for that, but they are really important. It's not like you can go just pick commodity technology and get to the same place. Some are faster, some are more productive, some are easier to use. But where I started from in my journey, and I've been doing transformation for a very long time, I actually think process is the most important place to start, right? The way we were looking at IT organizations 10, 15 years ago, they were back office, they were managing data centers, they were focused on end user computing and what devices people were working on. I used to joke around, CIOs knew less about the data in their databases and more about what boxes they were running on. Seriously, and I think that's still true today. We knew how to service somebody's laptop, but if they had a question about a particular application, we didn't know how to go solve it. That was an application issue, right? So that was the world of IT. And it's not that long ago. It's probably like a decade ago. And you look at where things are right now. I wrote about that in the first book, Driving Digital. I didn't know how that book was going to perform, but I said there are certain things I thought were truly instrumental in how to run technology, digital, and data organizations today. They're about using Agile as a way of working. So you're constantly evaluating where you are, what customer feedback you're getting, how to pivot and realign to what customer expectations are. How do you bring multidisciplinary teams in working together? So that's the Agile story. I think that's really important. I think the data story is really important. And it's not just about AI and machine learning. It's really about how to build data ops in so you can continually bring in new data sources, making your organization smarter with external data and internal data, but also citizen data science, right? You look back 10 years ago, again, what was the number one technology that every single business analyst had to do their analysis? They were using spreadsheets. Right. And you look at it today.
The spreadsheets are BI tools, right? But BI tools are just spreadsheets because they didn't think back then.
That's right.
I remember that'd be like, what's the difference between this and Excel? I have to put everything in.
That's right. Right. And not only that, in a BI tool, number one, you had to wait for IT to put it all in. You didn't have access to it as a business user. And number two, everything was batch, right? Everything was, let's put all the analytics in, let it run overnight. There's your data. You change the formula.
What's happening right now? I don't know right now.
Exactly. So we're very real time yesterday. Right now. So that's a very different mindset. We're not programming something to run overnight because we're in clouds. We can do things more efficiently. We're using different sets of tools. So instead of doing a manual spreadsheet, put it into a PowerPoint, I'm having business users create dashboards, creating the analytics around it, using that to do storytelling. It's a very different world. So I start with process. That's really the big foundation that's changed organizations and says, when you say IT is part of the business and digital is part of the business, that's what we really mean. We're bringing digital and technology capabilities into a cross-collaboration mode. Now, the second thing is leadership, right? When you start building up your practices and you look at what does a CIO need to be successful in their organizations today? Well, the CIO isn't spending their time figuring out cloud technologies or picking out data platforms. That CIO better be sitting in front of customers, learning how they're using their products, learning how they're using technology, what are their struggles, what are their pain points, talking to their business leaders in terms of profitability, where they see markets growing, what types of practices are going to make them successful going into the future. There's an entire executive mindset that needs to change as you bring new technologies in. I remember bringing in CRMs 10, 15 years ago and CEOs asking me, why do we need this thing? We could just do this in a spreadsheet, and explaining, what a pipeline was and what a sales process looked like when it was managed with a pipeline. So, lots of different changes there. So if the CIO or the chief digital or data officer isn't the one planning or doing the implementation, the leadership that's living and working with them underneath them, their VPs of data governance, of analytics, of applications, of cloud architectures, these are the people who are really planning and doing the execution. That's really important to cultivate. And if you look at it now with post-Great Resignation, we're doing a lot more hybrid working. We're seeing still a lot of people shuffling jobs around. Really focusing on making leaders successful in running transformation programs, I think, is number two. That's why I wrote Digital Trailblazer. It's not really how I got into the journey. I'm happy to tell you about that. But Digital Trailblazer is a book for aspiring leaders to learn and feel what it's like to be inside a program transformation. Sit through my lens. It's a first-person narrative book. So you're sitting through my board meeting. You're sitting through detractors throwing darts at me when they didn't like the results I was telling them. You're sitting through some of my personal experiences through 9/11, through changing my business because of COVID. So lots of things that happen that leaders have never experienced before. And now when you're leading a transformation program, you want that confidence that you've read, you've learned about it before, and you're able to take action when you see something. So I think number two is leadership. And then when it comes to technology, right, like I said, technology really does matter. Right? We have to be very strategic about what platforms we're picking as a technology. We're not startups that we can just let our technologists pick another technology every time there's a new platform out there, every time there's a new upgrade. We need to be able to create standards so that we're more efficient, so that we create best practices. And so finding technologies that allow us to multi-purpose, that allow us to integrate workflows, that allow us to bring data together in a homogeneous way across different business units. These are some of the things that enterprises really need to think about as they're building their platforms out. Sorry, it's not easy. It's not.
Yeah. Let's recap the top three things you said. Feels like it's more of a people problem than a technology problem. You said, well, technology is very, very important, but in your order, you said process is the number one thing. When you have the process, you will most likely succeed. Two, you have great leadership. Someone who can guide the path, set the vision, is making great decisions based upon, as you said, customer inputs, not internal inputs. Customer-based inputs. Internal inputs are a big part of it too. And then three, the technology piece comes into play. Those were your top three things. IT Visionaries is powered by Salesforce Platform and Dreamforce 2022. Catch the news and insights coming out of Dreamforce this year for free on Salesforce Plus. That's salesforce.com/plus. That's PLUS. Content will start rolling out on September 20th.